Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to get started in just a few moments, just waiting a few seconds for everyone to join into the room. Once again, we are excited to have you here today. We're going to get started in just a few moments, waiting for everyone to get into the webinar room. All right, I think we can get started. So welcome to the final chapter of the AI Visibility Action Plan webinar series. In part one, we learned about how the AI search landscape is changing. And in part two, we started to work on that AI-ready content strategy. And today we're going to wrap it all together in part three, the ROI of trust in AI search. My name is Alex Kornberg. I am a marketing lead here at Trustpilot, and I will once again be your MC. So before we get going, I just want to let you know that we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to hit that QA button, and we'll get to it at the end of the session. And second, we are recording this webinar, so we will be sharing that link with you after it airs so you can rewatch at your leisure. And now I will pass it to our speaker today. He is Justin Catroni, Director of Product Evangelism and Customer Education at Trustpilot. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all again, and welcome to our third and final webinar. Let's jump right in and cover what we're going to discuss today. First, we're going to actually start by talking about Trustpilot. Over the last couple of webinars, we've talked about trust and how important it is in the AI visibility space. Today, we're actually going to dive into Trustpilot and talk a little bit about the product and what you can do with it in order to help with AI visibility. Then we're going to get into metrics, and we're going to just talk about AI search visibility measurement as a concept, as an idea. And then to wrap up, we're actually going to talk about something new here at Trustpilot, which is our new AI search analytics report, which I'm really excited about. So before we begin, I want to really just touch on something that's been at the core of everything that we've kind of discussed over the last couple of webinars, really. And one of the most important things as we talk about AI visibility is the importance of the human experience, right? And we've talked about how these systems work. We've talked about AI visibility, and we've discussed that, these systems generate answers, right? And they have as much information as they were trained on. And they need to find real experience, real human experience, in order to round out those answers so that when they generate an answer, they can incorporate real human experiences into their answers, right? Because these systems, that's data that they don't have, right? They don't have actual qualitative data about what people experience with businesses and products. And that's where a platform like Trustpilot really comes in handy, right? Because we are a platform full of millions and millions and millions of real human experiences. And we've talked about how reviews are sprinkled throughout AI answers when it comes to kind of the entire conversion funnel, right? So when people are asking AI about brands, when they're asking about products, when they're asking about services, up and down that conversion funnel, AI systems are looking for human feedback. They're looking for that real, genuine human experience in order to augment their answers and provide something that is really just not factual, but rooted in a human experience. And we've been seeing more and more access of our data from AI systems. This graph is a little confusing, but I'm going to walk you through it. And it's based on some of our own internal data over a 60-day period earlier this year. And the blue line represents requests from ChatGPT. And you can see that line is actually trending slightly upward, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that we're getting more and more requests from ChatGPT for information from our platform. That means more information about businesses on their profile pages. It means more information from the reviews that people leave. And so that shows us, it tells us that ChatGPT is coming to our platform, collecting that information and using it in answers. Now, what we're also seeing in the red is that we're getting fewer referrals from ChatGPT. That means clicks from ChatGPT to our platform. And so we're seeing, like I said, a slight increase in the consumption of our content and a slight decrease in traffic from ChatGPT. And that supports this idea of a zero-click search, right? Something we've mentioned in our previous webinars, where the systems like ChatGPT are coming, taking the data, using it in answers, but not sending a lot of traffic, right? And it's kind of validating that we are getting, or that brands are getting represented by AI systems. They're creating a view about your brand, about your business, without ever sending traffic to really any pages. Now, it's not just them coming and them looking at the trust score. What we're actually seeing is that these systems are consuming the information on profile pages. They're reading the reviews, they're consuming the reviews, and so that they're picking up those nuances about what people are talking about in the reviews. They could be talking about shipping, they could be talking about product quality, but we are seeing that in AI answers, it's not just a general trust score that's getting reflected, it's actually details about the real human experience. Now, we're not only kind of learning more and more about this from our data and our log files, but we're also seeing this from third parties and the studies that they're doing. This is some information from SEMrush, a study they did back in the summer of 2025. And they were doing some research on what is important to these AI answers. And they were noting that off-site authority is really, really important. So review sites like Trustpilot play a role in influencing these answers. And why? Well, because these systems are looking to corroborate brand claims. They're looking for, again, that real human experience that they can incorporate into the answers that they generate. And just this February of 2026, there was a study done by PromptWatch about cited sources within ChatGPT answers, and Trustpilot was the 5th most cited source. Again, why? Because of the information that's on the platform, that real human experience that corroborates brand claims and brings that qualitative feedback into the AI answers, something that these systems don't have. So it's really, we've been talking about this for a while at Trustpilot about how important it is to leverage the information you have about your customers, and that it's such a big advantage, right, to have that feedback from real people. And as we enter the age of AI, it's actually even a bigger advantage having all of these reviews, all of this feedback. It's qualitative information about your business. It's publicly accessible, not only to customers and future customers, but to AI systems, and it can change opinions, right? And so in this new age, what we're seeing is that Trustpilot as a source of customer feedback, as an open source of qualitative information, is an influential source when it comes to AI search results. So with that said, let's dive into the product a little bit. Let's talk about some of the basic things that you can do to make sure Trustpilot is configured for the best results with AI search. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about your profile page. All right, and this isn't overly complicated. And when it comes to AI search visibility, really what you want to do is, first of all, make sure you're claiming your profile page, and you want to make sure it's up to date. You want to make sure you have clear and easy information that aligns with information in other places of the internet, right? A nice description, accurate business details, things that match up with your website, right? To create that consistency for your brand. So no matter where AI is looking on the internet, whether it's on your Trustpilot profile page or if it's on your website, there's consistency in that information. Now, one other tip that we talk about here is to make use of something we call the discovery bar, right? This is a great place to highlight key products, policies, or promotions about your business. A good way to talk about things like whether it's shipping, your guarantee, or things that might set you apart, right? Like it's additional information that the AI systems can consume and they can include when they generate answers. But in general, it's good to make sure that it's up to date and it's consistent with other information across the internet. Now, something that's actually very important is automate invitations. And so obviously with Trustpilot, you can invite people to write reviews about your business. You can invite customers after they buy a product. You can invite customers after they interact with your support team. We'll talk a little bit about all the different times that you can invite people, but you can automate this invitation collection. And that's actually really important. If you remember back to our last webinar, we talked about how AI systems really like fresh, recent information. Well, by automating reviews, you create a steady stream of reviews on your profile page. Now, that's great because it tells AI systems that your business is active, it's thriving, it's continuously collecting reviews and interacting with actual customers. So AI systems see this as activity, right? And that's important to them. They know that things are happening. And so automating invitations, like I said, is important because once you start that automation, you don't need to worry about things. And so we have features like our automatic feedback service, which allows you to kind of set it and forget it, right? And so you can invite users via email, via other methods, so that they are constantly providing reviews to your business. And that data freshness will be a signal to AI systems that you are active and that you have engaged customers. Now, in terms of collecting customer reviews at different points in the customer journeys, this is also something that we recommend, right? Like, so obviously a lot of businesses, they will collect reviews after their primary conversion. Maybe it's after they sell a product, or maybe after a customer has been using a product for a certain amount of time. But we have multiple ways that allow you to embed data collection at multiple points in the customer's life. So for example, we're excited that we will be introducing a new review collection widget that SaaS-based businesses or any business can embed in part of the customer lifecycle. So for example, maybe after somebody has been using a SaaS product for a month, you can use our new review collector widget to trigger the collection of a review. And this is important because it allows you to collect reviews at multiple touch points. So now, not only do you have fresh reviews from automation, but you also have a diversity of reviews. You can have reviews about your product or service. You can have reviews about your support experience. And this creates, again, more diverse information that these AI systems can use when they build their answers. And as we've seen, they do read the answers. They do look at what's being written, not just general trust scores. And so they'll pull out those nuances about the customer experience as people talk about the business and what's happening with it. So again, it's not just important to automate review collection, but think about how can you collect reviews along the entire customer journey. Now, another important thing to do is actually to respond to reviews. And this shows an interaction between you and your customers, right? Now, obviously, this is very, very important to other people. When they see you as a business responding to reviews, it's actually a really strong trust signal, right? So whether someone leaves a good review or maybe a not so good review, the fact that you take the time to respond and that you craft a good response really means a lot, right? It builds a lot of trust with the market and with potential customers. It also builds a lot of trust with AI systems, right? Again, they are consuming all of this information so that when they see you're actually responding to good and bad reviews, that's a trust signal to them, just like it is a trust signal to other people. So if you do get some bad reviews, take the time to reply appropriately, right? Like, think about the customer's experience, try to empathize with them, right? Look at it from a very neutral perspective, what actually happened to this customer, and craft something that's empathetic. Doesn't have to be long. It can be very brief, just that you're listening and you're empathizing with them. And again, remember, all of this information, all of this data is public both to other people and to AI systems. Now, one final thing I want to mention about using Trustpilot when it comes to AI systems is to actually use some of the analytics and some of the data to generate content ideas. So if you remember from our last webinar, we talked about generating ideas for content. Well, a great way to do that is through one of our reports, the topics report. And this is a way that we use actually AI for our systems, in that we look for themes amongst all the reviews. And so this can be a great way to generate ideas for new content that you might want to build and use. So we're going to talk a little bit about some other analytics reports later on. And we have lots and lots of data that we provide to our customers about the interactions with people and their Trustpilot pages and their reviews. And it's a great source of inspiration when you want to think about generating new content. Okay, so that kind of covers off some of the basic things that you can do when working on your profile and using Trustpilot in terms of AI search visibility. Now, I want to kind of transition a little bit and start to talk about data. And I want to talk about measuring and understanding how visible we are in AI search. And really, a lot of this measurement kind of hinges on something that's new called citations, right? And so we talked about in webinar 1 and webinar 2, and even a little bit here at the beginning of webinar 3 about how AI systems generate answers that include information about your brands. And often these answers include citations back to sources for information about your brand. And so let's look at an example. And so here we have an answer from an AI system, and you can see these little things that look like footnotes, highlighting one here in orange. It's a citation. It looks kind of like a footnote. And at the bottom of the answer, it actually will tell you all of the sources that it went and it looked for when it was generating its answer. So it gives you a complete list of all of the resources, and the citation is part of that, right? And so here you can see there are a few different citations, some from Trustpilot, some from other websites, and it went out, it got information from Trustpilot, used that information when it was generating the answer. Now, these can be measured, and actually we do measure these, and we measure these by actually looking at our log files. And this is a very, very reliable way to measure citations that come from Trustpilot and that appear in AI answers. Why is that? Well, log files are a definitive record of actions on your web server, right? And so that could be a person using a browser accessing the data, or it could be a bot, right? Like in search, we have crawlers that go out and index websites and data. While in AI, we also have crawlers or bots that go out and search for information. And so for us on Trustpilot, we can actually look at our log file and we can see which bots are accessing the data. You can do the same thing with your log files. You can do a log file analysis to look and see, is ChatGPT sending their crawler? Is Claude sending their crawler? And how often and what are they consuming, okay? And again, log files are a very reliable way to measure what's happening on a web server because it represents real actions. Now, with that said, while you can measure what's happening from within the log file, the measurement gets a little bit messy when we think about what actually happens in real life. And let me give you an example here. This is really interesting, where here we have a ChatGPT answer, and if we look at the sources, we can see that there were 3 pieces of information retrieved from the Trustpilot site, okay? And so here we can actually count in the log file, and we can see, oh, there were 3 different pieces of information retrieved. Well, if we look over at the actual answer, we can see that ChatGPT decided to use this information 4 times, okay? And so we don't really have any control over that, right? So in terms of measurement, right, we can measure within the log file that, oh, hey, 3 pieces of information were retrieved, but in the actual answer, 4 things were kind of referenced, right? Or some of those things were referenced more than once, all right? And so this is just one of the things that we have to deal with in the measurement of AI search visibility, right? Measurement in the digital space in general can be complicated. It can be messy. Why? Well, we have to deal with things like privacy. We have to deal with things like technical limitations. And this is one more example of that, where AI systems can choose to use information in a number of different ways. They could decide to cache this information. And so we can measure as good as we can and just use that as a baseline, right? And so the thing I want everyone to remember is that if you can use log file analysis and you can measure AI citations as AI server requests, right? It's going to give you a pretty reliable number. But it's highly likely that the actual number is higher than the number that you count, right? And that's just because, again, these systems are generating answers. They're generative systems, and they may choose to use the information more than one time. Now, in addition to measuring using kind of log file analysis, there are other measurement methodologies that are out there. And we're seeing lots of vendors enter the market when it comes to AI search visibility. And they're doing some really, really interesting things. And you've probably heard the term synthetic prompts, right? And the idea here is that rather than look at the log files, some companies, what they'll do is they'll create a group of brand related prompts for you, or you can create a group of prompts related to your brand, right? 15, 20 prompts. And then these companies will send those prompts to different AI systems programmatically, and then they'll look at the responses. What's the answer they're getting back from those prompts? And then they can analyze those answers, and they can look for your brand. They can look for where it's listed in the response. And this is another way of measuring brand visibility through citations. But it's different, right? It's not looking at the actual log file. So the challenges with this methodology is that, the prompts could be too general. They don't represent actually how people speak or how people talk. And if you think about it, all these AI systems are customizing answers for us as individuals, as they get to know us better. They're customizing the response. And so, this type of measurement is good directionally, right? Like it can give you some general idea of how your brand is being represented or the responses to certain types of prompts, right? Maybe not exact prompts. So it's good directionally, right? Certainly this isn't like a metric like revenue for your business where you're really trying to get the exact number when it comes to something like revenue. When it comes to this type of measurement with AI visibility and the use of these synthetic prompts, it's good because it's directional, right? It helps, gives you some sense of what's happening. But I would just say, don't take it as gospel. Don't take it as an exact science. It's a little bit more like art. But it brings up a good question, right? So ultimately, what we want to do is really understand what are the prompts that people are entering, right? What is the intent of people who are using these AI systems, right? And how can I get at that intent, right? We don't get the actual prompts from AI systems. They don't pass it to us in the referral information that comes to our websites. And so we have to kind of guess, right? And looking at what information is getting cited from our website or from our business, we can infer a little bit about what people are looking for, but how can we try to actually go a little bit deeper? And this is an area where doing a little bit of keyword research or digging into some of the data from Google can be really, really helpful. And so within Trustpilot, we actually include reports on Google search queries. And now this report actually includes AI overview and Gemini prompts. And the reason is it's just how Google does their reporting. And so within this report, within the search queries, you can actually do a couple of cool little things in order to filter out or filter all of the keywords or search queries in order to try to identify some of the prompts. And I want to show you a couple of tricks that you might want to try. And so again, here we're talking about using some of the reporting in Trustpilot. That includes search queries. And so you could start to look at things like the length, right? And so you could look at maybe queries that have more than 80 characters or queries that have more than 12 words. Now, why might you want to do that? Well, because if you think about how people prompt, they prompt in more natural language, right? They're not entering 3 or 4 keywords. They're entering more natural language types of statements. And so here are a couple of very simple Excel or Google Sheet type formulas that you can use in order to process some of the data, right? And look for things that have more than 80 characters or more than 12 words. And that usually would indicate something that's more likely a prompt and less likely a search query. Now, within that data, you can look for things that are more natural language framing patterns. So, for example, people asking things about how, what, if people are talking about pros and cons of things or looking to compare things. Again, when people use AI, they tend to use more natural language and less search queries. And so filtering some of the search query data using those simple formulas I showed you, and then looking for natural language framing, that can give you a hint of, or maybe help you filter down some of the data and look at what are actual prompts that are coming through from Gemini or from AI overviews, okay? Obviously, at the end of the day, what we want to do is try to understand that intent, and between using some of this data and maybe looking at information about what's getting cited about your business or your brand, that can help you get some direction. Now, with all this said, I'd love to tell you about something new that we're going to be rolling out here at Trustpilot very, very soon. And this is our new AI search analytics report. And we're really excited about this. Obviously, we've been talking about how Trustpilot is cited as part as AI answers. And our goal with AI search analytics is to give you visibility into AI use of your Trustpilot data. And so AI search analytics is based on AI access to your Trustpilot data based on our log files. So as I talked about in our previous section, what we're actually doing is we're looking at our log files, we're looking at the AI activity, we're taking that out for your business and for your brand, and we're putting it into reports for you to consume. And so what are we actually looking at? Well, first of all, we're looking at AI citations, right? And as I mentioned, AI citations from a measurement perspective, we're looking at what's getting generated from our log file. So it's a very reliable way to understand a baseline of how often AI systems are including your information. So we're looking at the number of page views from your Trustpilot profile that are coming from AI platforms. We're then looking at what percentage of your traffic is this, right? And so we can calculate a share of traffic by dividing AI citations by total profile views to give you some general sense of, well, how much traffic is AI? Is it large? Is it small? And we can also give you general metrics of how many visits are coming from AI. Again, all context for you to understand how often AI is accessing your Trustpilot data. Now, if we dig a little bit deeper into these reports, here we have a couple of graphs. This bar chart here in the middle is actually a stacked chart showing the three primary AI search tools that we're going to include at launch. This includes ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity. We're using those to start, and so you can see each of those and how often they are coming and consuming your profile data. And then we can also trend just the overall share of profile traffic coming from AI systems. And we can also break this down a little bit more simplistically in terms of citations and visits by each specific engine. And we also can share this data as raw tabular data for you as well. So this is really exciting. Now, you're probably asking, this is great. Now, what do I actually do with this information? And that's a great question, right? Because the whole idea of any data set is to really see if you can move the number, right? Like this gives you insights in what AI is doing or how often AI is accessing your information. And, the idea is like, how can you increase this? How can you make this go up, right? And so, what we're really recommending with this data is it's a great idea to trend this over time, right? To look at what's happening with this data over time. See if there are any seasonal trends, see if there are any other blips or changes based on what's happening. But overall, what you want to do is look to improve the AI visibility over time. And how can you do that? Well, based on some of our early research, what we're seeing is that the volume of reviews and the freshness of reviews are two things that can move the needle. And this makes a lot of sense, right? Like when you think about AI systems and what they're looking for information that validates real human experiences. So the more information you have about that, and the more current or more recent that data is, it's a signal to AI systems, right? It's a signal that people are interacting with your brand, people are interacting with your business, they're leaving feedback, and they're talking about the customer experience. And so at the beginning, when we were talking about things like automating invitations, when we were talking about collecting reviews from multiple parts of the customer experience, those can help you drive a higher volume, and they can diversify the reviews that you have so that they cover a much larger part of the entire customer experience, which gives you broader messaging, broader information about the experience that AI can consume and then add into their answers. So we're very excited about this. We think this is going to be helpful for businesses, and look for an announcement coming very, very soon. So to wrap up here a little bit about what we covered today, we covered a lot of stuff. We started by talking about Trustpilot and some of the basic things that you should be doing in order to make sure Trustpilot is configured for AI search visibility. We talked about making sure your profile is complete and up to date. We touched on automating review collection in order to make sure that you're collecting reviews at a regular cadence so that your review data is fresh. And we also talked about collecting reviews across the entire customer journey, right? So that they represent the true customer journey with your business, maybe not just one part of it. We talked about responding to reviews, right? That's a very important trust signal, not only to other people, but to AI systems. And then after that, we kind of started to talk about measurement. We talked about server logs and how those really are a reliable way to measure and get a baseline of how AI systems consume information from your site. We also talked about synthetic prompts and how systems can send prompts to AI systems and then automatically look at the responses to get a sense of what AI is saying about your brand if you can't use a log file analysis. And then finally, we touched on something new, the new Trustpilot AI Search Analytics report, which we're very excited about, and how that will help you understand how AI search engines are accessing your data on the Trustpilot platform. And we talked a couple ideas on how you might be able to move the needle there through review freshness and review diversity. So we covered a lot. Hopefully there are a few things here that you can take away and you can try moving forward. And with that, I'm going to bring Alex back in, and we're going to see if we have a few questions.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, we do have a few questions, and I've picked out just a couple good ones. The first one is, how can we prevent AI from hallucinating or sharing incorrect details about our brand in its answers?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think what's really interesting is, right, hallucinating is definitely something we've talked about. I feel like we're talking about hallucinations less. And I think that's a combination of a few things, right? I think it's a combination of the quality of AI. Obviously, companies are coming out with new models, they're tweaking their systems. And I think the best thing that we can do as a business is make sure that there's good, accurate information out there. And I think when I say good, accurate information out there, you need to think in terms of first-party information and third-party information, right? First-party information is that information that you create. And we talked about this in webinar 2, about getting ideas, creating good information, formatting it the right way, making it readable and accessible to AI systems. And it's also important to have that third-party information. And that's what we touched on really today when we talked about Trustpilot, right? Trustpilot is a platform that contains all of those reviews, third-party information, real human experiences that corroborate what you talk about on your website. And so when AI systems see that first-party story that you create and that third-party story from customers that corroborates what you're saying, I think that can go a long way in creating the truth for AI.
Perfect. Thank you. This next one is more just a clarification on those AI citations. The question is, why does Trustpilot count an AI citation based on a server request if ChatGPT might use that information, say, 4 times in one response?
Yeah, great question. And again, this is where, things can just be a little bit messy when it comes to measurement, right? And for us, with our new AI Search Analytics report, we want to provide the most accurate information we can. And the way that we can do that is look at us at a log file, identify how many times ChatGPT came and looked at a piece of information, and give you that number. Now, if ChatGPT decides to generate an answer and reference that one piece of information 3 or 4 times, that's their system, right? And that's kind of up to how that system works. And so we really have no control over it. And so, as I mentioned before, measurement can be a little bit messy, but it's good because it's directional, right? Like you can start to set a baseline using this type of measurement, and then see how it changes over time. Does it go up? Does it go down? Did you make a change? Did the numbers change? There's always going to be some variability because systems are going to work different ways. But if you kind of can set a baseline, and use that as your accepted value and start with that number, then you'll be better off than trying to worry about the absolute perfect number every time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks. This final question is, if AI summarizes a negative review, will that hurt my overall visibility in AI search results?
That's another great question. I love these because these things are really nuanced, right? And so, when you say, will that hurt my visibility? I'm going to say no, it won't hurt your visibility because you'll still be cited, right? The AI systems will still generate an answer. They'll still cite information about your brand. However, the information they cite may be negative, right? And so these systems, they're not just citing positive or neutral information. They're also citing negative information. So will it hurt your visibility? No, technically you'll still be visible, but might it hurt your brand? Yeah, because it'll be talking about negative things. And that's why it's important to do things like automate the reviews. So you're collecting reviews from the entire customer experience and responding, right? Why? Because when you're collecting reviews and you're responding to reviews, you're taking that feedback seriously, right? You're improving your business based on that feedback. And one of the things that we talk about with our customers all the time, and we have been for many, many years, is that, Trustpilot is a way for a business to understand and empathize with customers and to improve their business. And that's the goal. And so over time, maybe when you're starting, you might have, some negative reviews, but if you're listening, if you're responding, and if you're improving your business over time, you will have more and more positive reviews that are more recent, which will probably, hopefully, bubble to the top when AI systems generate their answers.
I love that. Thank you. Well, that is all we have for you today. That is our time. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This concludes the AI Visibility Action Plan webinar series. So, Justin, thank you for taking us on this journey. It's been great. And to you, the audience, thank you for joining us. Thank you, whether you came to just one or two or all three of these webinars. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope at this point you are ready to start thinking about that AI Visibility Action Plan for your own brand, and with Trustpilot on your side, of course. So until next time, we'll see you then. Thanks.